Henry came to his senses and saw a beautiful woman named Estelle. She explained that they were married and Henry nearly died, but he was rescued and got a new body made for him. They put a lot of cyber features in it that made him stronger and faster. The only thing Estelle didn't have time to implement was a voice module. When she and her colleagues tried to do so, Akan's mercenaries attacked the lab. He showed up too. Akan had telekinesis and could have easily killed Henry, but he didn't. While he was talking to him, Estelle helped her husband escape. They made it to the escape pods, but there was only one left, and Henry took Estelle with him. It turned out that the lab was in the stratosphere above Moscow, so the capsule landed in the city. The parachute opened too late, and Henry and Estelle had a hard landing. His wife lost consciousness, and he was attacked by Akan's men. He tried to fight them off using the powers of his new body, but the mercenaries appeared stronger, except that they didn't count on Henry falling off the bridge after being tasered. They had to send soldiers to get him. While the escapee was hiding between cars, the mercenaries finished off the guard of the parking lot, and then they spotted the cyborg as well. Henry hid in a container, killed the soldier who had followed him, and then began to shoot back at the remaining fighters. Henry had been outnumbered, but had it not been for Jimmy, who had come to the rescue, he would have been dismantled for parts. Henry didn't remember the reckless killer. He didn't remember anything at all, but Jimmy knew him and wanted to help. Henry jumped in his car and they drove away. On the road, they checked Henry's body condition. Jimmy asked to insert some wires into the connectors on his chest, and the screen showed that the cyborg had 20 minutes to live at most. But Jimmy wanted to help him. He was going to take him to the lab. It seemed that luck smiled at Henry, but then they were stopped by the police, who tried to kill him. Jimmy skillfully evaded them, but got shot in the back of the head and parked his car in violation of the traffic code. Waking up, Henry grabbed the bag of clothes his new acquaintance had given him and ran underground. A pursuit had already begun for him. In the underpass, he hid in a stall, changed his clothes, finished off the Moscow cops, and turned his parkour skills to the maximum. He got away from the pursuit pretty fast, and once on the bus, he encountered a homeless version of Jimmy. He looked like he'd lived in District 9 with aliens for years. Jim took the beacon out of the cyborg's hand that tracked him and told him that the mechanical body parts were about to start to shut down. Homeless Jimmy gave him a geotagged phone with the location of a guy named Slick Dimitri. Henry has to find him, rip out his heart, and get the booster pump. This device is in urgent need for homeless Jimmy. After telling him all this, he notices a dude who looks like a disco ball and is curious about his outfit. But Disco Ball wasn't going to chat about clothes. He pulled out a flamethrower and burned Jimmy. Henry had to run away again. He ran so fast that he soon found himself in front of Slick's house. It was impossible to get in through the door. He had to activate Yamakasi mode and climb the wall through the open window. Once inside, Henry stealthily made his way to Dimitri's apartment, but Cord and his sidekicks burned him. The cyborg had to finish off the sidekicks right in the elevator and had to shield himself with Cord from the bullets of the other guards. When Henry stuffed the guards with lead and found the lair of Slick, Dimitri looked quite dead. But as soon as the cyborg was distracted, he attacked him. Dima was not particularly persistent. When Henry fought him back, Slick just ran away. Yet Henry ran faster than he did. He caught up with Dima, and when Akan's mercenaries blew his head off, Henry took the booster pump from the corpse's chest. Upon learning that the mission was accomplished, Jimmy invited his mate into the establishment with a minimum of clothing. This time, Jimmy looked like a spicy actor from the 70s. He had his nostrils so powdered that he could hardly think what he was doing. Henry started to faint at this point. To keep him from going to cyborg heaven, another version of Jimmy showed up and put a booster pump in Henry's chest. When he did, energy surged into his system, and the cyborg came back to life. But then Wimpy Jimmy got word that Akan's men had come to the place. Wimpy fled, and his curly-haired twin regained consciousness and threw himself into combat. Henry managed to shoot too, but he couldn't leave the club without an adventure. He ended up in the room where Akan was and fell into his telekinetic hands. But as it happened, Henry flew out through a vent and plummeted into an underground parking lot. Jimmy was already there on his bike with a side trailer. With him, Henry finds out from one of the Akan fighters where the convoy with Estelle is now. It takes the cyborg's wife to the villain's base. Jimmy takes his Russian girlfriends, and Henry catches up with this convoy. The cyborg trashes the cars and their contents with a machine gun. The girls and Jimmy help him, but soon they are sawed off, and Henry has to operate alone. He gets to the main car, gets inside, and kills the guards, then frees Estelle. At this point, Akan shows up, uses the cyborg's head instead of a baseball, and then gives his body to his soldiers, asking to bury it in the woods. However, Jimmy is against environmental pollution because Henry's body contains a lot of plastic. So he kills the mercenaries and repairs the cyborg's body so that he can continue on his way to the lab. Yet it's not that easy because Henry ended up in Russia, and anything can happen here. For example, a tank appears, blows Jimmy to atoms, kills his girlfriend, and then chases a cyborg with a katana. However, the katana in capable hands can even stop a tank. After that, a helicopter appears in the air with Akon's fighters. Henry has to shoot them during the landing. He tries to climb into the cabin but gets thrown down. Jimmy sees that his cybernetic friend is safe and contacts him by phone. He sends him the coordinates of the next location, and Henry tries to steal a horse so he doesn't have to walk. Only the horse throws him off. In the woods, he meets Jimmy the sniper, and he takes him to his secret lair. Here, they see the policemen who are trying to dishonor the girl, and Henry deals with them. Then they arrive at Jimmy's lab, and it turns out that the copies of him that Henry has met are artificially grown, and the real Jimmy is paralyzed and wears these copies as suits. He taps into one of them and controls it from a distance. Akon made Jimmy disabled. He created cyborg fighters for him, but when they were launched, there was a malfunction, and the fighters were useless. As punishment, Akon broke Jimmy's back. Since then, he has only been able to get around in a wheelchair. Jimmy showed Henry the possibilities of his technology. He showed him the remaining doppelgangers. But then, one of them noticed that Akon could see through the cyborg's eyes. He tried to deal with Henry, but he broke free and fought back. At this point, Akon's mercenaries appeared, and Jimmy decided to team up with Henry. Their main task was to save the body of the scientist who controls all the doppelgangers. While Jimmy the Master rode the elevator down to the first floor, his doppelgangers were crushing Akon's soldiers along with Henry. They managed to steal a mercenary car and arrive at the villain's office. They were already waiting for them. A firefight ensued, and Henry and Jimmy came out of it alive, but Jimmy the Master was wounded. Realizing he is no longer alive, Jimmy unlocks Henry's memory and then dies. Upon reaching Akon's office, Henry discovers that he has been tricked this whole time. Estelle was never his wife. She is in cahoots with the villain. With her help, Akon discovers that what motivates cyborgs the most is the love of their wife. Now, he will use Estelle to create an army of obedient soldiers who will take orders from her. They'll be ready to do anything for her as their spouse. He already has prototypes with more powerful boosters. Akon incited one of them against Henry. He finished him off and took his booster. It made him stronger. Henry chased Akon to the roof, and there he had to fight with dozens of other cyborgs. After dealing with them, he stood up to Akon. He knocked him out, and then began to mock his naivete with Estelle. Henry remembered his father, who had taught him to be a man, and he took a new lease of life. At that moment, he had a double dose of adrenaline in his system, which he had found in the medicine cabinet, and a new turbo booster. The villain's telekinetic skills were useless against such a weapon. Henry finished him off, jumped into the helicopter Estelle was trying to escape in, and finished her off. Estelle wanted to shoot him, but the husband struck the bullet aside with his hand, and it ricocheted into her. Estelle fell out of the helicopter, and as her screams faded away, following her body, Henry could finally sigh in relief. And that's where the movie ends. Thanks for watching.